Continue with the deliberations, just briefly taking a look at what has been covered on the papers. Joining me in studio, we have Dr. Njogu Barua, who is the former Gishugu Member of Parliament. I'm also joined by Arthur Odera, the former Teso North Member of Parliament. Gloria Roba is still with us, Youth Policy Analyst. And we're joined by Stephen Mwakesi via way of Zoom, Public Policy Analyst. Dr. Njogu, I'd like your take briefly on the politics currently in the country. The alignments all to do with the 2022 general election, succession politics, and perhaps your take on the latest developments involving Jubilee Party, even as they're set to have talks today on the make or break talks over UDA and their links with it. What's your take on that?
I think my take is that these alliances are going to be there, especially from now up to December. And I think by end of the year, come December, there'll be two firm alliances. One revolving around Dr. William Ruto, the other one revolving around Raila Odinga. I want to say that the genesis of this succession battle started the handshake. And to me, the handshake was expected to be a one-killer punch for Deputy President William Ruto. Because of the popularity of Raila Odinga at that particular time, with what was then the hustlers of the day, because I think that time Raila was very popular with the common mwananchi, I think the president expected that if he can team up with Raila Odinga, with his popularity in Central Province at that particular time, and the popularity of Raila on the other hand, at that particular time, they just unleash one killer punch to Dr. Ruto, and will be off the way.
Okay.
Unfortunately, for Raila Odinga to go to that handshake unilaterally, clipped part of his popularity, and his following was actually reduced because he was seen by his supporters as a person who has compromised what he has fought for over decades. The other side is that when Uhuru Kenyatta also went to work with Raila Odinga, a big part of Mount Kenya felt betrayed.
Okay. Because
we were of the opinion, let's say we because I come from Mount Kenya, we were of the opinion that the agreement between William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta was to last up to 2022 and beyond. And it would have been no harm if both Ruto and Uhuru had teamed up together to look for somebody else to strengthen their government.
All right.
But for Uhuru to go unilaterally and seek alliance with somebody else who we have been fighting all that time, and sideline the person who has supported him, has actually reduced his popularity. So what I'm saying in short is that the handshake has weakened the Raila brand and has weakened the Ruto as a brand, Uhuru as a brand. The other thing is that the One Kenya Alliance is not a formation of the people who constitute the alliance. That is Kalonzo, Wetangula, Mudavadi, and Gideon Moi. It's a formation of the deep state, let me call it the deep state, after realizing that what they expect of Raila Odinga may not be obviously working.
Okay.
So it's another way of putting another team together and see where they can act as an alternative to what was expected from Raila Odinga. But eventually what I expect to see is that by the end of the day, this bunch of four leaders may be convinced by the president and his handlers to give a chance to Raila Odinga. So by the end of the day, it's going to be a Raila-Ruto context.
Okay.
The other thing I would like to say is that, which I didn't say on the other my earlier contribution, is that Raila Odinga has been visited by Mount Kenya elders twice or thrice. Twice in Bodo, I think, and once in Nairobi. And I think, I don't know how to give the opinion, but I think I will request Raila Odinga to do his own assessment and assess and make an opinion of what influence Wazés or the elders still hold on Mount Kenya region. I think the influence of Wazés or the elders in the political future of the region is winning by the day, and I think he may be contacting the elders to support him may not bear the fruits that he wants.
Okay.
Finally, on the succession, I think the president is not working on his own, because you cannot rule this country your own. You must have a team of advisors and the people who support you. Part of the interest of getting a suitable successor, and by the suitable successor, I mean somebody who can play ball with this group that is in power today after they leave power, is one of the reasons why they are actually angling to ensure that the person they leave in office is a person they can do business with.
Simple.
I think Uhuru wants his legacy to be continued. He also wants to be safe as a retired president. And the people who are in the deep state also don't want to be in trouble. And that's why they want to ensure that the person who succeeds Uhuru Kenyatta is a person they can do business with.
So it's an intricate balance, all to do with interest right there.
Of course,
a lot more details on today's dailies. Make sure you grab yourself a copy. As we finish off on press review, Stephen Mwakesi, perhaps your take on the bilateral relations between Kenya and Tanzania going forward. We are expecting President Samia Suluhu tomorrow in Kenya. She's here for a 2-day state visit, and definitely inspiring a lot of interest, excitement among Kenyans, hoping that this will mend relations between these two neighboring countries. Perhaps your point of focus ahead of this bilateral meeting between the two heads of state.
Thank you, Jesse. As a resident of the county of Taveta, and a county that actually borders Tanzania, I'm actually very excited to see that one of the few trips that the new President Suluhu has made will be to the country of Kenya. We've had quite a very bittersweet relationship between Kenya and Tanzania over the years, and it was starting to look like it was getting better under the late President Magufuli, but there was still some turmoil, and it's good that now that one of the key things that President Suluhu has done over the last few weeks in office has been to try and mend the number of fences that have been seem to have been broken between now the neighboring states with Tanzania. She was in Uganda recently, and now she's coming to Kenya. I think for me, what I've been really looking forward to is the issue of our economic relationships. I mean, there's been a lot of problems between Kenya and Tanzania when it comes to the issue of non-tariff barriers that have been raised by both Kenya and Tanzania, stifling the growth of trade between the two countries. And I think if this is something that can be well discussed and a solution found, it will be one of the ways in which we can enhance the relationship between the two states. One of the other things that she said that she will be doing is to address both houses of parliament, that is the National Assembly and Senate. And having come from an election herself just the other day, and having also been appointed the chairperson of CCM just last week, I believe that she will have a strong political message to give to Kenyans, and especially the House, and especially being a person who's come from a minority region of Zanzibar. There's a lot of discussions that she can really bring to the table with regard to how to enhance the togetherness within a country. She was also part of a constitutional commission that was set up under President Kikwete that held a lot of discussions in trying to change the constitution of Tanzania. So she comes at a point when we are also discussing the BBI and to change to our own constitution. So I believe one of the key points that she'll be able to raise will be also on the question of constitutional change and how it impacts ourselves within the region. But for me, ideally, as I've mentioned before, the question of economic trade relations between Kenya and Tanzania is one of the greatest importance. We also have the question of EAC. We still have some dynamics within the EAC that are not quite well resolved. And I believe that the discussions between President Suluhu and her counterpart, President Kenyatta, will actually yield some fruit and be able to open up a new dimension in our relationship between the two Kenyan states. I think the other question also will be how we as a country, as Kenya, can be able to help Tanzania as they go through this period with COVID. I believe we've really revamped our manufacturing, and it opens up an opportunity to be able to assist wherever possible with Tanzania. We also have discussions with Tanzania on issues of energy, LPG, and how we can be able to interconnect between the two countries and really enhance our energy dynamics within the region. So I'm really excited about this as well. And the other thing that is even more exciting is that she's coming after we've appointed a new CJ who's a lady, and we're hoping that by her speaking to Bunge, she will actually urge them on to be able to fast track the appointment of CJ Koome, and we can see a new dawn in the region of having vibrant women leadership in various positions. I was really hoping she can have a moment to actually address the gender question and gender dynamics and speak to even that within Parliament and also outside and meet women leaders in the country. I hope she can find some time for that, but it will really enhance us if we can be able to see a growth in terms of bilateral trade between Kenya and Tanzania. That for me is my biggest take, and I'm looking forward to that.
We're definitely angling for that, especially this coming in the backdrop of the immediate invite by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and we have an immediate response. She will be flying in tomorrow. Gloria Roba, as we put this matter to rest, Mwakesi brought up a very critical issue, the gender question, following the nomination of Martha Koome as Chief Justice. Of course, Parliament is set to play a key role in cementing her position as Chief Justice. What say you about this, especially with the work cut out ahead?
I think this was a pleasant surprise. There was a lot of talks, and we were led in the wrong direction at the beginning. Yeah. There's a lot of talks about how we are just, ticking the boxes, but we know that Fred Ngatia is actually going to be appointed and stuff like that. So this was a pleasant surprise. Other than the fact that some of the issues that were raised about the panel that was doing the interviews, those kind of things, the integrity of the process was questioned. I think that Martha Koome actually is capable in filling up those shoes. And on the issue of gender, it's unfortunate that we really just want to, shed the light on just gender. I would like to hear congratulatory messages going to Martha Koome based on her expertise, based on her skills, based on her track record, because she has an extensive track record of having delivered in all her positions prior to this appointment. And I think the worst thing that we tend to do any other time that we get that win in terms of gender is we sort of forget to highlight that this is a deserving person, that it's not, she didn't get it because of the gender. She didn't get it because of we're trying to get to that progressive level where, women are going to rule and things like. She got it because she deserved it. She got it because she's capable, because she's skillful. And the same thing, Jesse, happened when Suluhu took over, The first thing that was hitting the social media and everywhere is, she's a second wife, this and that. They removed these stories about how she was talking and she was absent about, from her family and how she... And we just focus on the gender bit of it. But, when a man is appointed, we don't talk about that. Okay. We start highlighting, what were they, this person came from this as a CEO, then they went here, this is what they achieved. So I would like to move that conversation from the fact that she is a woman to the fact that she is capable and this is her track record. Right. And that way, then people might not start talking about, maybe Walimpatia because, she's a woman. And that's actually, when we're talking about pushing for gender progressiveness, we still have to do it with dignity, to maintain that dignity of that office. Okay,
with all respect, she definitely deserved this role by merit. But the question, quite briefly, Gloria, the question on inclusivity and the face of Kenya in this nomination, what's your take on that?
I've had a couple of talks where people are saying, the deputy CJ is a woman, and now this is a woman, and the other person is a woman. So what's happening to the 2/3 gender rule where the men in here? I think...
and regional representation.
Regional representation. I think these questions are valid because, again, I tend to think of it this way. If it was... if if it was the other way around, if we're talking about men, yes,
Okay.
I would be pushing that, you know, I mean, could they not find a woman who was capable enough, who had the expertise? So I don't think they should be rubbished off as you know, propaganda or whatnot. I think if we're going to talk about regional balance and gender parity across all boards on appointments and things like that, then we have to be fair. You know, it has to be a conversation that can be had when indeed it is a full panel of women, when indeed it's actually the opposite. Because, you know, the risk we are taking here is that come 2022, and we have all those appointments and whatnot, and we don't have enough women, and, you know, we raise that and say, you know, we would like to go the gender parity, or we do not have representation from the regional balance. And these things that we are actually saying now to justify that, the risk is that they can be used, you know, against the winds of that progressiveness in gender.
Okay, well, it's definitely a delicate balance. We expect a lot to happen even as the Jailer Committee dispenses of its duties in this regard. Allow us to shift focus right now. Focus on the BBI vote, where Parliament this week is set to debate and take a vote on the bill. A special sitting should take place as from Tuesday, even as proponents of the bill are actually expecting the bill to pass without any challenges. But legislators were, however, divided as to the possibility of making amendments to the bill at this particular stage, forming part of the conversation that we saw last week in Parliament. Let's take a look at this report before we delve deeper into this discussion.
After taking a short break, the Senate is expected to make a comeback this Tuesday. The special sitting, gazetted on April 30th, is expected to dispense with the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020.
Hoping that on Tuesday we should be able to conclude that matter. If we don't, then that's why I've gazetted Wednesday and Thursday. But we are hopeful that everybody can make a contribution. Who wants to make a contribution, then we'll be able to take a vote. And once the vote is taken, whichever way it goes, then we'll be able to forward it to the president for further, further action.
Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka says all the 67 members of the House will be expected to take a vote on the BBI bill after the debate.
The ultimate goal is to vote. As for Senate, we need 34 senators to vote because this is a special constitutional bill, so the majority will have to vote whether they are elected or nominated.
If you amend it,
senators have exuded confidence that the bill will sail through and move to the next step.
I'm confident that as a Senate we'll be able to pass it, so long as once we're done by this week, then the onus is on IBC to set a date, because the ultimate decision on these constitutional changes must be made by the people of Kenya.
This comes as debate on the proposed corrections to the bill rages on. The legislators divided as to the possibilities of making any amendments to the bill at this stage.
Standing Order 162.3 provides that once the bill is passed, before certification, when the speakers are taking it to the president, because that is what 257 talks about, that any error of form, typographical, that does not change the substance or the intention can then be made by the speakers.
The National Assembly is also expected to take the same route on Thursday, 4th May, when the House reconvenes. The legislators will have the first reading of the bill as the showdown between the warring camps is expected to intensify. National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi is also poised to make a ruling on the role of the MPs in the process as to whether they can make any amendments or not. The BBI discourse in Parliament is now getting into the home stretch as members of Parliament now prepare to make their verdict known regarding the bill this week. Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
Well, we'll continue monitoring the debates in Parliament, but fundamental issues were raised just last week on the role of Senate not being ceremonial, on the schedule of the 70 new constituencies and what role the BBI promoters actually should play and where IEBC comes in. We've seen issues around the judiciary with security of tenure concerns, the role of the National Police Service, where the IG will be able to promote and discipline officers, and a lot to do with Article 203 on allocation of revenue as well between the two levels of government. Authoritative, I'd like to begin with you. I mean, there's so many challenges in the dispensation of the BBI vote right now. Bearing in mind what we're seeing and going forward, what do you anticipate as the legal landmines that might affect this whole BBI process? Perhaps before I start with you, let me start with Dr. Njogu.
Oh, yes. Let me first of all start by finishing up what you had asked me before. The issue
briefly, sir.
Briefly, for 1 minute or so.
Yeah.
The issue of UDA and Jubilee case today. They're having conversation on what the direction to take. I would like to say that the Jubilee mainstream has been very, very keen to display that William Ruto is in defiance of is working against the Jubilee manifesto. So the issue of trying to link from UDA from Jubilee is actually an attempt to remove Ruto from Jubilee. Secondly, on the issue of Mother Kome, on gender parity, I think I said on this forum last week is that the issue of regional representation was offered during the advertising, when the job was advertising. So when it came out, there's only 10 people who had made the threshold of being interviewed. It means that the gender parity had to be generated from that among the 10 of them. You cannot go outside that. Yes, and so the other thing is that you look at the heads of government,
Okay.
Heads of arms of government, the head of executives is a man, head of legislatures is a man. Now you have a head of the judiciary who is a woman.
All right.
And the fact that you have a man, a woman and a woman, CJ and deputy CJ, does not make the whole judiciary uncompliant.
Okay.
So that's the issue. The issue is some grammatical issues or issue of reference from one section to the other. Let's call them typographical. I think those changes may not change the substance of the bill. And unfortunately, the proponents of promoters of BBI initially were very loud, saying that you cannot even change a comma or add a comma to that document.
Yeah.
Now it has come to haunt them. And that's why I agree to some extent with what was said by my predecessor, Mother Karowe, at one particular time, when she said that if you are making a constitution, you make a constitution which makes even your worst enemy comfortable.
Okay.
So because the next time you'll be in that position, because politics is dynamic. On the issue of 70 constituencies, that is the proposal of the popular initiative. So that proposal is what we are going to vote for. We either say yes or no. The other issue is that the IBC, although is the one which is actually mandated to do border reviews, had not given us an offer on how they want to change or to increase or reduce the number of constituency. So we cannot say that this is their mandate. Because if we say their mandate, we're actually telling Kenyans the IBC is having a mandate which they are not able to implement. Finally, I would like to say that this bill has got goodies for every region. And what I can say from where I sit is the issue of 70 additional constituencies may be a matter of concern when it comes to the debate in Parliament.
Okay.
But that is a matter of interest to the people of Mount Kenya region. Because Mount Kenya region has got the biggest population and got the least members of Parliament. If there is an attempt to scrap it, number one, it will change the substance of the bill. Number two, it will not get support from Mount Kenya region. The other issue is the issue of 35%. That one cuts across the whole country. We need to be assured that once you pass this BBI, the 35% will be available, will be disbursed in time, and will be used for the various regional development initiatives.
Okay.
As I conclude, I would like to say that there's this debate on creation of positions of Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Ministers, two Deputy Prime Ministers, I think two Deputy Prime Ministers, and so forth. Let me say this. Those positions can be used by anybody who ascends to power.
Okay.
If William Ruto ascends to power, he'll have a field day now dishing up those positions to various communities or to various regions, which is consorting. So to me, the issue of addition of positions may not have been a priority, but it will serve as a good thing in terms of governance, whoever takes over, be it Raila Odinga, be it William Ruto. Okay. So let us not assume that these 5 positions will benefit Raila Odinga.
Okay.
If that is what they thought, then they have got it wrong. It might even end up helping William Ruto much more than these other guys.
Definitely, but the question is the pressure on the common taxpayer. Arthur Dera, well, what's your take on the issues that seem to stand out during the debate in Parliament, and what do you expect this week?
To start with, Jesse, I would like to say that my expectation this week is that the bill will be passed in both houses. There is such momentum that even the controversy that, which I think is a storm in a teacup, that seemed to surround Senator Orengo is not what it is. Because I listened to one of his contributions in the House, and what he said was actually supportive at the end of the day. So let me focus on 2 of those issues that I think generated the most decibel and seemed to be riveting the attention of Kenyans. The first one is the one on the JSC. The JSC is the body that manages the judiciary, is like the primary oversight body and the one responsible for appointments, promotion, and the general welfare of the judiciary. It also acts to protect the judiciary against forces that may seek to compromise the independence of the judiciary, and that is just as it should be. Now, regarding security of tenure, I don't think it's an issue actually, because it does not come to the level of dismissal of a judge or a magistrate. What it says is that the JSC will ask or will suspend a judge or a magistrate when it is deemed that this person needs to step aside to facilitate an investigation by a tribunal as provided for in the Constitution. Now, it is normal practice. We ask that of political leaders. We ask that of members of the executive. We have seen ministers or cabinet secretaries in this country step aside to pave way for investigations. Why is the judiciary an exception? And which better body should we task that with other than the JSC? I think that is okay. We should not fear that. After all, it is only paving way for an investigation. How do you investigate an officer if they remain in office all the while? It is very difficult. Now, coming to the big one, which I think is big, contentious, and potentially a showstopper if it goes to the courts and the courts rule otherwise. The 70 constituencies were proposed by the promoters of the BBI. Of course, the 1 million signatures mandatory makes it a popular initiative. Now, if you want to amend the Constitution of Kenya, is there a procedure for you to go through to amend that Constitution? Yes. Where is that procedure found? It is found in the Constitution. There is nowhere else to look other than in the Constitution to give us the procedure for amendment of that same Constitution. And there's been a big debate on whether you can try to amend, whether an attempt to amend a Constitution can be unconstitutional. And yes, because if you don't follow the procedure laid out in that Constitution, therefore you cannot amend it. And that's why we say there are only 2 ways to amend the Constitution, either through a popular initiative or through a parliamentary initiative, which gives the representatives of the people the opportunity to do that, and also gives the ordinary man and woman in Kenya the opportunity to do that, subject to them being able to generate sufficient signatures. And therefore, we must rely on that same Constitution to be able to amend it. And otherwise, we run afoul of it. Now, the 70 constituencies that were created, in Article 89, subarticles 5 to 7, the Constitution lays out in some level of detail the factors to be considered in creating new constituencies and how to go about it. So IEBC, which has the mandate, and it is only IEBC that has the mandate to create new constituencies. There is nowhere where you find guidance. A popular initiative can recommend that we want 70 constituencies, but cannot eliminate those constituencies. You cannot say that we want to give Coast 20 constituencies or 5, or give Western 8. On what basis?
Okay.
Unless you demonstrate that the basis laid out in 89.527 has been followed, then you have no justification to give us the number of constituencies per county.
All right.
It means essentially, I mean, and people have talked a lot about numbers, and numbers are important.
Yeah.
I want to, just give me a moment. Let me explain to you. Numbers are very important, but numbers alone can be meaningless. Let me give you an example. There's a constituency in Nairobi. When I was in Parliament, I got involved in a discussion with a colleague who was representing a constituency in Nairobi. And I was telling him just how much of a headache I get allocating money to the development of young schools that require a lot of infrastructural development. And I have 93 primary schools. I have 30 secondary schools, 17 locations, 43 sublocations, and hundreds upon hundreds of kilometers of road. I get a headache allocating that money to those projects. And this guy told me he has 3 primaries. I have 93 primary schools. He has 3 primary schools and 2 secondary schools, and all the roads are covered by KURA, Kenya Urban Roads Authority.
Okay.
Now, tell me where you will find equity between those 2 constituencies. If you say that because of numbers we increase Nairobi, and you know, that money, the bottom line is about delivery of service to wananchi.
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about delivery of service, in Nairobi, you have a constituency with 300,000 people. If you want to give water to the next household, it is 5 meters away. So it's much cheaper to give water. If you go to Taita Taveta, where Stephen Mwakesi comes from, you may cover 20, 30, 40 kilometers to give water to the next person.
Yes.
If you're giving electricity to the next household, in Nairobi, you're covering 2 or 3 meters away. Is it cheaper? Yes. If you go to Teso North, you may cover 10, 20 kilometers to give the next person electricity, to give the next person water. If you go to northern Kenya or northeastern Kenya, you may be talking about hundreds of kilometers to give the next person electricity. So when we talk about, and this is in the Constitution, there is the geographical factor. And it's not just the geography we learn in class, it's about the impact of the geography on the delivery of service to those wananchi who pay taxes, who we owe services. So these 70 constituencies must be delimited on the basis outlined in Article 89.527. Otherwise than that, people will see bias, people will see a reincarnation of sessional paper number 10 of 1965. People will see a lot of interest that skews allocation of resources to certain regions and denying people who need it more.
Okay, Arthur, I think the point is definitely home. Spot on. Gloria, let's just get views from Gloria Roba. Your take on this briefly, and perhaps if you can combine this particular issue, what to expect going forth, and perhaps the good news from President Uhuru Kenyatta on Labor Day in terms of opening up of the 5 zoned counties. Your take on this?
First, let me touch on the good news.
Okay.
The good news of opening up the county. You know, it was inevitable because if you are intending to subject Kenyans to a referendum in the next couple of months, actually less than 2 months, then for sure it wouldn't make sense that you are saying we are fighting a pandemic, we have the lockdown, we have the curfew, we have this, we have that, and then suddenly we have to open up the economy so that we can go for the referendum. So for me, it was almost like if indeed you have intentions to ensure that BBI passes, that we go to the referendum, you have no choice but to open up the economy. You have no choice but to show that, you know, the numbers have come down. You have no choice but to ensure that by the time we are going to be seeing this sensitization and campaigns for BBI, it would not be from nowhere, you know. So I think that was a catch-22. It was almost as if they didn't really think through the whole lockdown and all the way, you know, to referendum and otherwise. So I think it was expected. When we talk about the Building Bridges initiative, actually, Jesse, I feel like we've belabored the conversation. There is a court order, actually, that is barring IEBC from subjecting us to a referendum. And And until the hearing is done and we get the judgment, we actually are just following the processes of, you know, from the county assemblies to the National Assembly and the Senate, and then forwarding it to the president. But until that court order is taken out, until we get a judgment that says, yes, we have been cleared and the process has been constitutional, and, you know, the bill in itself is not unconstitutional, then I think all what we're doing is just preparing for that hearing.
Okay.
At the end of the day, there were a lot of issues that were raised in terms of the allegations of the different drafts that have been there. Whether or not we had the full, you know, threshold of 24 county assemblies actually passing the bill, because remember there was a talk that only 11 of them got the legitimate bill. We have the issue of the 70 proposed constituencies. Is it constitutional, you know, because the attempt to amend the jurisdiction of IEBC and them being the organization that's responsible for the boundaries reviews,
okay,
then there are so many issues here and there. Even just the fact that we are not sure we are talking about typographical errors or, you know, fundamental errors that actually change the draft bill. So in the end of it all, it almost feels like the process has been rushed and there have been so many errors. And I can tell you there has been fatigue both from, you know, the private citizens, the commoners, the Mora and the Wanjiku. We are sort of tired because we've invested 3 years into this Building Bridges initiative.
Okay.
And, you know, if you ask me, Jesse, I want to just see it come to an end. And if that means that these people are going to push it to an extent where they don't really care if it's unconstitutional, but, you know, we have to go to the referendum, I mean, let's just get over and done with it. Let's get to the referendum, because I believe, just like Chapter 1 of our Constitution states, the sovereign power belongs to the people. And we might be rushing all these things and finally put it on referendum, and who knows, you know? The Kenyans might say we are not interested in this thing, and they throw it out. But I think we just need to come to an end, you know?
Well, we'll definitely see that end once the courts dispense with issues to do with the BBI process. Mwakesi, your final take on this. Contribute to us. Well, what do you think of the BBI process so far? Are you reeling from the anxiety, perhaps, and your take on the reopening up of these 5 red-zoned counties? What happens if in case we note a resurgence?
Jesse, on my perspective, I'll follow up with what has been said previously, that let's get this process over and done with. The fatigue that we have as Kenyans is too much. I think right now the courts and the Bunge must really expedite in making sure that the bill reaches Kenyans, and then if we are to be able to carry out a referendum, let's go ahead and get it done. I know there are a lot of political balancing that has to be done by the presidency and the promoters of the bill on whether this is an appropriate time to actually bring about a bill. Raila Odinga is very confident that the bill, if put to the people, will be able to sail through. The other people who would say that coming up with a bill right now and taking it to a referendum in the middle of a presidency that's looking to secure and cement its legacy will be something that will maybe distort that ability to show that the presidency was in firm control. But for me, I believe Kenyans already have been anticipating, and the moment that referendum is put forward, Kenyans will be able to participate and be able to show either their pleasure or displeasure with the bill. For me, when it comes to the Labor Day pronouncements by the president, I believe it was a decision that was taken in good time. We needed to really reopen, especially the travel between the different counties. It was very important that we allow business to continue, commerce to continue, and especially the reopening of restaurants within the disease-infested zone. A lot of Kenyans were suffering, and this is something that could not be allowed to go on any further. We, as has been said by other people before, that maybe we have BBI to thank for this, but it's important that we allow Kenyans to be able to go ahead and carry out their normal day-to-day business. But they must be able to follow the laid down procedures. They should be able to actually follow down the protocols, washing hands, social distancing, and wearing of masks. But the one thing that I really want to recommend for this particular country going forward, now that we've reopened the economy again, it's very important that the president looks for mechanisms to put money into people's hands. It's very important right now that the focus should be in how to be able to enable the little Mwananchi to be able to reinvigorate their businesses after coming from such a huge slump. There's a study that was released last week from Bell and the University of Nairobi and the University of Notre Dame, where they try to put some money, seed money, a grant to small business players in Kibera and different areas. And the net effect of this was that the small players had actually their business improved by and get profit of up to 38%. So it is telling that if we are able to put money into Kenyans' hands, we'll be able to reinvigorate our economy. I also want to urge county governments to put money into giving seeds and fertilizers to our farmers so that they can be able to jumpstart agriculture in the county. And this is something that I strongly believe in will be able to cater for this particular issue.
Okay.
We also need money to send to the counties to be able to pay for the pending bills, because a lot of Kenyans are suffering, holding a lot of bills from the government that have been unpaid. So it's something that Treasury should really push forward and be able to ensure that Kenyans get money in their pockets going forward.
Spot on. Well, thanks, Stephen Mwakesi, well noted public policy analyst, joining us via way of Zoom, adding his voice on the various talking points we had. Right here in studio, I was joined by Dr. Njogu Barua, who is the former Gishugu Member of Parliament, Gloria Roba, Youth Policy Analyst. Many thanks for your time, as well as Arthur Odera, who is a former Teso North Member of Parliament. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Allowed to take a short break. Of course, a lot to talk about, so little time. When we come back from this break, we focus on the day that marks World Press Freedom Day. Of course, the 3rd day of May, quite instrumental in members of the Fourth Estate. We take a look at the opportunities, at the gains,